I am Grady Culhane in the CapeCod.com News Center, and I'm joined today by a special guest from the Hyannis Film Festival. Do you mind introducing yourself for our listeners?
Hi, Grady. Nice to meet you. I'm Bill Ferrall. I'm the managing director of Hyannis Film Festival. We're all enthusiastic listeners of WQRC 99.9 and CapeCod.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. We wanted to just get you in studio on let's see, in person to chat a little bit more about what's going on for this particular theme season, essentially, for the film festival. Can you highlight a little bit more about what people can expect?
Well, what's coming up on the weekend of November 3rd through Sunday, November 5, is our annual Fall Festival, which is usually over a weekend, and it shows a variety of films. This year, we're doing what film festivals call spotlighting. So we're spotlighting a theme for the weekend, and that theme this year happens to be neurodiversity, which encompasses things like autism, birth disabilities, a whole variety of things, actually. And I keep reminding people I don't want to make that sound too clinical, because these are actually movies about real people and about joys and fun and frustrations and triumph. So our first film, in fact, for Friday night is Champions. I don't know if many people might have seen that movie. It's a movie directed by Bobby Ferrall and starring Woody Harrelson. And the lead Down syndrome actor from the film. It's a story about a coach who's told by the court to he's given a court punishment, as it were, to coach a Special Olympics team that's had a hard time and has been struggling. One of the team players is played by an actor named James Day Keith, and he's a Down syndrome man, 25 years old, and he'll be here for the screening. Wow. So he's one of the special guests we're going to have this weekend.
That is awesome to be able to have the meet and greet with some of the people actually in the film. That is wonderful to hear. Was that difficult to set up, essentially? Do you have to plan these months in advance?
The people whose arms I turned to be here would laugh at hearing that, since it's some of it yes, some of it no. I mean, when you invite people whose professional life revolves around doing film and arts and culture and music and that sort of thing, you have to be prepared for them getting a gig, and not being able to be there. So that said, James Day Keith was available, which is lovely. And then throughout the weekend, we have a few others. We're going to be showing Women Talking, which is also a movie that's been out there a long time. And I'm really thrilled to say that the actor Judith Ivey will be here, and she'll be doing Q&A after that film. That's on Sunday at 2 o'clock. And then we have on Saturday, we have Roger Kabler, who's an actor-comedian who made a film about Robin Williams, because in real life, he thought he became Robin Williams. And with a lot of consultation with psychiatrists and counseling and other stuff, he's kind of back on an even keel now. But he made a documentary about it, and it's fascinating. And then also on Saturday, we have She Sings the Birds, which is a delightful film from a group called Must See Pictures from Tokyo, and we've worked with them before. This movie is about an older woman who has dementia. It's in Japanese, but it's closed captioned. We've shown their films here in Hyannis now for 3 years, when they have so we're kind of their U.S. premiere. And one of the co-founders is a guy named Stephen J. Martin, who worked and taught here on Cape Cod for many years. I should say, just to backtrack a little, that we're working with groups on the Cape on this. They've been consulting and advising with us since we came up with this idea, and it includes capabilities, community connections, best buddies, and I'm missing one in there, communications, best buddies, community connections, best buddies, capabilities. I guess that's the three. Yeah. I think I'm forgetting somebody, but you can go to our website, hyannisfilmfestival.com, and it's all there, as the tickets are. We start on Friday night. People who get a weekend pass will be invited to a special reception before Friday night, and come to anything that weekend. Oh, and then also another highlight. See, you got me going here. Now I'm excited. I've been excited anyway, as I hope people who come are. We know that several groups of students are coming, so that'll be delightful. That's the people we want to reach with this kind of thing, so they can see themselves on the screen and see people they can identify with. But on Sunday, we're showing Saturday afternoon rather, at 4 o'clock, we're showing a documentary called Capturing the Killer Nurse. So if you remember the story about the male nurse, Charles Cullen, I think was his name, who might have murdered hundreds. He was finally convicted of murdering, I think it was a dozen or 14, whatever the final number ended up being. But a book was written about that incident called The Killer Nurse, or The Good Nurse, rather. The Good Nurse was the name of the book, and then the feature film was made from it, starring Eddie Redmayne and Jessica Chastain. The author of the book, Charles Graeber, is going to be here for Q&A. So anybody who's interested in the writing process, investigating on how to make a movie, that ought to be a great event.
Wow, very informative and covering a lot of different angles, especially from the writing standpoint to the actual film, and very interesting to have the foreign component as well. Very interesting. Do want to highlight that Cullen, unrelated to Culhane, Grady Culhane, myself. I just want to emphasize that now.
That's right, no relation.
No relation. But talking more about the community, seeing yourselves up on screen. So this is I'm assuming that this is going to be, a lot of these are students that are going to be able to see people that are going through similar challenges themselves.
Right. Students are always welcome to come to our events free. So and since these aren't necessarily student-aimed films, but they'll see people like themselves. The film Saturday Night, for example, is about a gay dwarf. He calls himself a dwarf. He was born with dwarfism, and it's a really wacky, wonderful movie about his neighbor, who happens to be a sex worker. She comes and knocks on his door and asks to borrow his car, and the two end up on a road trip to Canada looking for aliens. She thinks she's going to meet up with some aliens who she thinks she's already met in life. So that's with that setup, how could you miss that movie? And then the closing film will be a movie called OK, the ASD Band, which is about a group of 4 young people with autism who form a band. And that helps them to develop their identity and feel good about themselves and express themselves through music. And it's really a fun, upbeat movie.
When you're organizing these events every year, do you try to come at it from that angle of like, what can we do that would maybe help the community in this way? Or
Absolutely. We have 2 primary missions. Our mission is to show films either made on Cape Cod or by Cape Cod filmmakers, and films with topics of particular interest to Cape Cod. So last year we showed a lot of environmental films, for example, which is a major issue for all of us living here on Cape Cod and the islands. And this year it happens to be neurodiversity and autism and the related things about that. And then the year before that, for example, this is our 3rd year of doing this on a weekend in the fall. Our first year, for example, we showed 2 movies about Red Sox players, so, and a movie about old-time bars and restaurants and bands that played in them. I know people are familiar with that film, and members of the bands came, and that was great. It was one of our bigger turnouts. We showed a movie about a family that moved to Dennis, and the father decided he was gay, which also had a big turnout. So again, our programming tries to focus on topics that are specifically of interest on the Cape or made by folks on the Cape. So also working with us is Cape Cod Film Collaborative, and they provide us with shorts that we show between the feature films. And then some of the feature films, a lot of the feature films actually are chosen in consultation with this group called Real Abilities in New York. And they are basically a distribution service, a nonprofit, that distributes internationally films about disabilities. So, and they've been really, really great. And again, some of the movies are just great. I can't say enough about how great some of these movies are. So.
All right, that's awesome. So I noticed that you started doing this about 3 years ago. I can't help but notice the lineup a little bit with the end of COVID-19. We're in a new phase, according to experts, and I'll let them clarify where we are in terms of the COVID pandemic. But with especially focuses on things like mental health, neurodiversity, it definitely seems like maybe was there a discovery of like, how we can do a lot of help here or try to.
Well, we don't. I don't think any of us made that direct connection.
Sure.
But we started it. We were actually founded in 2019,
okay.
And we were going to launch in the spring of 2020. in March. So if anyone remembers the significant event that happened in March on the second or third week, 5 days before our first event, you know that's when the COVID pandemic restrictions started. So we punted, and through the first year we did some online stuff. We did a drive-in movie theater on Main Street in downtown Hyannis. We worked closely with the Hyannis Business Improvement District, because that's also part of our mission, is to contribute to the economy and the arts and cultural vibrancy of downtown Hyannis. We love Hyannis. I live on Main Street in Hyannis, right in the heart of it all. I love looking out my living room and bedroom windows at what's happening on Main Street. I live right across from the transportation center, and it's really a great place. I should say also, for anyone who might still be concerned about those issues, and there is some concern out there. I mean, I wear a mask sometimes when I'm in crowded environments still, that we're at 529 Main Street, which is across from Columbo's on Main Street, and that's a big space that now is part of the Sturgis Charter Public School, and it's a lot of space for moving chairs around. The chairs, which are very comfortable, can be moved around as you like, so if people want to separate and be apart, that's fine too. So yeah, I mean, we want people to be cautious still.
All right, that's awesome. So as well, I don't know if you mind, but we're talking about film anyway, so I'd love to get your thoughts as well. Currently, nationwide, we have SAG-AFTRA is currently also an ongoing thing. We have some strikes going on in the entertainment industry. Do you have any kind of thoughts or opinions?
Well, I have a lot of friends who work in the business. So I had many friends who were on strike, mostly as writers. You know, we're not conflicting with any SAG-AFTRA stuff with this, because we're kind of not, you know, we're apart from that, and there's no filming production involved with what we're doing. I mean, you know, the technology is changing so rapidly that actors and writers really need to make sure they're protected for what's coming along. I mean, you know, there's all this chatter about AI, which I have to be honest, because I've been so darned busy in recent weeks, I haven't really had a chance to do the deep dive. But it's funny, somebody sent me some copy the other day as an editor and asked me what I thought of it. And I was reading through about the fourth paragraph, and I thought, this doesn't sound quite human. It was very much proper and grammatically correct and everything, but there was just that little flavor in there that said to me it wasn't human. And there were a couple of phrases, and I said to the person, who the heck says this about, they said something about, oh, it was about Nantucket. And it mentioned the waves crashing on the rocks on Nantucket. And I said, tell me, where are the rocks on Nantucket? I mean, Nantucket doesn't have rocky coastlines. So then she fessed up that it was written by AI.
Oh, was this
she was testing me. It was my boss at the radio station on Nantucket.
I see. Trying to hone the skills now for filtering out the content. It is very interesting. I must admit myself. I've read articles online. I'll usually get about halfway through before I'm like, something doesn't quite feel right. This feels a little bit strange. But that is very notable that it's going to be an industry game changer.
Yes, and I'm very keen to it, because I created and write a daily newsletter for the radio station on Nantucket, an electronic newsletter, where this stuff is coming into play a lot. I mean, I get probably 24, 30 news feeds a day from various sources, and I can tell the ones that are being generated by a machine rather than a person. You know, they just miss a certain touch, but the news business has changed so much, and the entertainment business, because of these technologies. So, you know, let's start a series about that. I don't know how, you know, I don't know how much it's affecting Cape Cod per se, except for the trimming down and trimming the fat away from major media sources. But that's not so much AI generated yet. That's more consolidating and using reporters across several platforms, kind of thing.
Next movies on Main for next year will be AI and all the robot.
I hope not. No, we always want the human element. You know, sometimes we've had crowds of 150. We've had crowds of 18, and we've been talking a lot about this lately. And you know, how do we get more people in a room? And I maybe part of it's still COVID hangover. Maybe part of it's having something that's not appealing to people. But when they do come, people love what we present. And I've seen people get tearful. The Q&A sessions have to be cut off usually. So we'll be back next March. March happens to be a month that we do a series of films that kind of steer in a different direction. We just do a theme for the month, and they don't necessarily have to be about Cape Cod, although we try to have people from Cape Cod who might be involved in it. And, you know, we've had Casey Sherman and Dave Wedge, if you know them, the writers. And we did a thing on the Way, which is the route that people walk in Portugal and Spain. And we had people from the Cape who have walked it, or were planning to walk it. So I like to say that even when we do films like that, like those in March, we try to do a value-added thing that somehow is connected to Cape Cod. And there are, you know, we're one of 6 now, I think it is, film festivals between the Cape and the Islands, or 6 known ones, Provincetown and Nantucket being the granddaddy of them all, or maybe Woods Hole is a year ahead in terms of history, but Woods Hole, Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard has a couple different, and then there's Provincetown. Provincetown would be the 3rd big one, and a couple of smaller ones. So we're in a mix with some pretty well-established, well-known in the industry film festivals. We're not there yet. I mean, you know, we're not 8 or 10 people sitting around a living room showing home movies, as some film festivals start. We're a lot more ambitious than that. But we have a ways to go to get to the level of some of those other places in terms of program. What happens with those film festivals, they become marketplaces for distributors. So people come in from major international distribution companies and see what they like, and deals get closed and all that sort of thing. That would be great for us someday. For the time being, we want to concentrate on things that matter to people in Hyannis and in Cape Cod. We like to say, honor within footsteps of Main Street. That's how we try to do things. Honor within footsteps of Main Street in Hyannis.
Sounds lovely. That's about all the time that we have for the day, but I'd love to just one more time, if people are interested, they've heard some songs, had some titles here for some films, not songs.
There is music in some.
There is music, but any films that caught their attention. Once again, where can people go to learn more?
They can come to HyannisFilmFestival.com for just the basics and links to other places. The tickets are on Eventbrite.com. So if you go to Eventbrite.com and punch in Hyannis Film Festival, you'll see all the programs there. And again, it's $15 for each film. The film about the killer nurse is free, and $100 gets a weekend pass and gets you into everything.
All right, awesome. Thank you again for joining me for this conversation.
Thanks, Grady. I really appreciate it. It's been great.
I'm Grady Culhane, and I'm Grady Culhane in the CapeCod.com newsletter. Who am I for a moment?
And I'm Bill Ferrall.
Thank you for listening to this conversation.